I'm a bartender by trade, and so I've had my fair share of these weird run-ins. You get pretty good at reading people. Who's there to unwind, who's there to disappear, who's there to be seen. Showboats, that kind of people. I've had a solid run at that place. A few years in, good tips, no drama. Management trusts me to close most nights. Not a bad gig. The guy in this story came in on a Tuesday. He sat 2 stools down from the service well, ordered a whiskey neat like a true lone wolf. He was around my age, clean and put together, not flashy, not sloppy, very, very normal. And that's the word that stuck with me. He watched me work and wasn't subtle about it. First round turned into 3, and somewhere between them he starts talking. Nothing wild, but it was all personal. Asked if I liked dancing, if I ever got out of the bar after my shifts. Told me I looked like I should be somewhere safer, somewhere brighter. I laughed it off and kept moving. This is what all bartenders do. We've heard it all before. And when he asked if I wanted to grab dinner sometime, I told him politely no, and that was that. He came back the next day. Same seat, same drink. This time he didn't ease into it, picked right up where he left off. I turned him down again, still polite though. He came back again, and again. 5 nights a week easy, sometimes more. He'd show up early, sometimes right before close. Always alone, always that same horny energy. He wasn't pushy exactly, never raised his voice, never got angry when I said no, but he didn't really hear it either. Just nodded, smiled, and circled back around for the next time. Textbook hound dog. Over the next few weeks, he started dropping details. Said he had a daughter, said he was divorced. Talked about work in this vague way, almost like he didn't have a job. But he always paid his tab. There was enough to build a picture, but not much else. I started to expect him, the part that I didn't like admitting, not in a good way, just that he became part of my work shift, a fixture, like the neon sign in the window or the cracked tile behind the bar, stuff you hardly notice until it isn't there. I kept saying no anyway, despite liking the attention. Then one night he came in really worn out, bad shift the night before, slept like garbage, everything felt like 3 degrees off in my head. He walked in halfway through the rush and took a seat, gave me that same look like he'd been waiting all day to see me. He starts in again, dancing, dinner, something fun. He was turning it up to 11. I was weak enough internally that this was starting to work on me. Maybe I was tired of being bored, maybe I wanted to prove to myself that he was harmless. When he asked again, I didn't shut it down. I just said, "Yeah, lunch. Let's do it after my work week is over." 3 days later, we met up. I picked the place. Busy, public, a little noisy, safe. He showed up on time, clean shirt, easy smile, that same confidence that it carried into my bar. Nothing felt off. We ordered sandwiches, iced tea, and sat across from one another like civilized people. And it was fine. The restaurant was one that I knew of but hadn't actually been to. I was disappointed in the menu, but more than that, the food and service itself was very meh. I know that isn't important in my story, but in my head, it felt like it took away from what could have been a nicer date. This kept me on the hook longer than I intended to be. There's no obvious red flags. He asked me about my day, told me the same stories that he'd been telling me for weeks now, about his divorce, his daughter, how hard it was to date now. A little self-centered and a little rehearsed, but not alarming. Just a guy who seemed to like to hear himself talk. I tried to meet him halfway. It was a good conversation, all things considered. When we finished eating, I expected we'd split. Instead, he said, "There's an ice cream place 1 street over. You want to talk more?" That sounded harmless. It was warm out. People were everywhere, so I said sure. We walked and talked. He pointed out shops, so he knew the area well. The ice cream place was small. I'd never heard of it. We sat outside with our cones and really relaxed. Things actually felt good. Then he says, "Well, there's a park right down the road. You ever been to it?" I had. It was a big open space with trails all over. "We could go for a walk for a bit if you want." I hesitated and he noticed. "It's broad daylight," he said, smiling. That line did it. Made me feel silly for second guessing, so I got in his truck. The park was only a few minutes away. He parked near the trailhead, further from the playground. A few cars around, but not many. People scattered across the grass. We got out and he locked the truck. That little chirp, for some reason, just echoed in my mind. We started down the path, and for a minute it was the same conversation, and I almost regretted going out there, but the trail curved, the trees closed in, and the park behind us quickly faded. Fewer voices, less movement. Just the two of us. And I got a bad feeling in my stomach. I glanced back toward the parking lot. Not a soul in sight. "What?" he said. "I'm just making sure I know where we are." He laughed and kept walking. We took another turn deeper into the trees, and he changed. No build-up, no warning. "You're a dumb bitch for coming out here dressed like that," he said. I stopped. "What?" "You heard me." I laughed uncomfortably. "Okay, that's not funny. It's not supposed to be. You're being rude." He scoffed. Everything in me went cold, and he stepped closer, right in my face. "You got in my truck," he said. "Walked into the woods with me, dressed like that." I looked down without thinking. A skirt, a fitted top, pretty casual. He kept going. "No one knows where you are. You don't know who I am. How many hours would it take for somebody to figure out that you're missing? I know your name. I know who you are." He smiled. "No, you don't." That's when it clicked. This wasn't random. He'd been building to this. "I've always paid in cash. I've never given you my real name." I turned and started walking back the way we came, and he stayed beside me without any effort. "Where are you going?" he said. "That's nowhere to go." I didn't answer. My chest was about to explode. My hands were shaking. I kept expecting him to grab me or something. "You think you're safe behind that bar?" he said. "You're just some girl who got in my truck." Every step I took felt like it was going to be my last. No part of this park was familiar to me. I could do anything I wanted out here. You're my property. My legs felt weak. I didn't know what would make him stop talking. Then I said the only thing that I could think of. "I hope nobody ever does this to your daughter." He stopped. I took 2 more steps before I realized he was no longer next to me. I turned, expecting him to snap, but he just stood there, face blank. He let out this weird huff, and it sounded like a laugh or a grunt maybe. "Keep walking," he said. I didn't argue. We made it back to the truck without another word. My hands were shaking so bad that I fumbled my door. He watched but didn't help. The drive back was quiet. He stopped at lights, signaled, kept his eye on the road. No evidence of the threats of murder that he just made to me. When he pulled up near my car, he unlocked the doors and said, "You need to be more careful. I actually did you a favor today." I couldn't even look at him. "Yeah, thanks," I said. "I actually thanked this smug bastard, I know." I got out, walked to my car, and locked the doors, and lost it as soon as I was inside. Couldn't even get the key into the ignition at first. I called my sister, then my friend, then my mom, told them about what happened, or as much as I could get out. I never reported it. I don't know his real name. I don't know where he lived, and I'd gone willingly, got in his truck, walked into that park. That was the whole point, I think, too. He made sure that I blamed myself, and in a weird way, he did open my eyes up to how vulnerable that I was in the moment, and how I'll never put myself in that situation again. This all happened in 2022, and he never came back to the bar. Years ago, I worked at a dollar store for about 3 months. It was one of those jobs that sounds simple until you're in it 8 hours a day, dealing with people that are teetering on insane and others just straight up criminals. I got screamed at by Karens over coupons, hit on by sketchy guys, and cleaned up messes composed of things that you can't even imagine. But I'd just been laid off, the money was tight, and I needed something to get by, so I stuck with it. I think the only upside was the location itself. Only 3 blocks from my apartment, straight shot down a dim street past a laundromat and a liquor store. My coworkers were decent. Our manager, Lisa, was in her 30s, always tired, always trying to hold the place together. We closed at 11 p.m., and by 10:15 it would usually go quiet. That night felt really normal. It was a dead store, light buzzing, me at the register just waiting it out. Lisa was in the back finishing her paperwork. The last customer had already left. Then the door slams open. A guy rushes in out of breath and eyes wide. Not drunk or high, he just looked terrified. "You need to lock the doors," he said. "Right now. Call the police." Lisa came out from the back, bracing for another issue. "Sir, what?" "I just passed your alley," he cut in. "There's two guys masked. They're not hanging out. They're about to knock this place down, and one of them has a gun." Oh, shit. Lisa didn't hesitate. She locks the door, flips the sign to closed even though we still had time left. I grabbed the phone, called the police, tried to keep my voice steady while my eyes stayed glued to the windows out front. The police showed up relatively quickly, lights washing over the store as they checked the alley, the side of the building, every place they could find. Nothing though. These men were gone, apparently. The officers then came in and told us they'd stay parked outside until we closed for real this time, just in case. That was a relief, but we were still scared. I'm 5'6", about 150 pounds, and I don't scare easily. I've lived in places where you learn to keep moving and mind your business. I've walked home plenty of times without thinking twice, but that night was different. Armed thugs just to walk away. And not just because of that, but because those guys vanished so fast, they could be anywhere. So I called my boyfriend. He came right away without any questions, and when we finally closed, he was waiting across the street with our dog, a big mutt that looked very intimidating. He walked me home quiet, alert the whole way. We hung out a bit, I told him all the drama, and he said there were all kinds of robberies going on. He went home a little while later, which was a short walk through the neighborhood, and texted me when he got back home. Zero issues. The next morning I ran into my neighbors downstairs. She looked a little off. "You hear what happened?" she asked me. I shook my head. "There's a bodega around the corner from your store. Cashier got shot, killed, around 11:30. Robbery." Same time, same area. I just nodded, but it hit me in the gut. Those guys in the alley. There was no way it wasn't them. I'd been 30 seconds away from getting shot over $600. If that man hadn't come in when he did, I didn't finish that thought. When I got to work, everything felt surreal. Lisa told me she filed a report and given the police everything. She looked even more drained and sleepless, more than normal, on the verge of a coma. After that, though, it was silence for a bit. No scares, no thugs in the alley. It was peace for 48 hours. We were still closing up a little earlier, pretty much right after the last customer around 10 p.m. A couple of days later, Lisa got called into the office, and when she came back, I knew something was wrong. "They wrote me up," she said. "For what?" "Closing early. Doors stay unlocked until 11, no exceptions." I stared at her. "Even after what happened?" She nodded. "Even with the police report. They had one complaint about us not being open until our advertised hours. Corporate is pissed." I thought she was going to quit on the spot, but she didn't. She rubbed her face and went back to work. "I've got bills," she said when I pushed. "I can't just walk." And that was that. The next night fell off from the start. Same routine, same slow crawl to closing, but there was tension under everything else. 10:45, still no customers. Lisa stood by the register with the keys in her hand, glancing at the door. I could tell she was thinking about locking it again, but she didn't. "We'll close on time." I didn't argue. I should have, but I didn't. 11, she flipped the sign to close, and for some reason still left the door unlocked. We started counting the register, going through the usual motions, and then the door opened, followed by footsteps, 2 of them. I looked up and felt my stomach drop. Masks. One of them had a gun, and he raised it right up to our faces. "Register," he said. She opened it, hands flying, pulling out bills and setting them on the counter. I could move, couldn't think, just watched Lisa handle the business. One of them glanced at me and quickly lost interest. I must not have looked like a problem. "That's it? There has to be more. These registers have been fucking shit," he screamed. "That's all the cash we have," Lisa said back. "Bullshit. You have to have a safe in the back or something." Lisa shook her head. Then the gun went off. The sound filled the store and Lisa dropped immediately. All the money in her hands went flying. They were gone just as fast. Door opened, then closed with a few $100s in a sack. Lisa lay there, gasping on the ground. I stood there not understanding what I was seeing. I moved around the corner, dropping to my knees, hands shaking as I tried to help her. There was so much blood. I remember screaming, fumbling for my phone, barely even able to talk to the operator. The cops came back and medical was on scene right behind them. We did everything we could, but it was over before it even began. Lisa didn't make it, and those guys, to my knowledge, were never apprehended. I was devastated after this incident and struggled to go back to work for a couple of months, and ended up quitting. I couldn't go back to that store. Back in 2000, I started working nights at a call center set up to what used to be an army base. It sat well outside the city, far enough that you couldn't just walk off the property and find anything resembling normal life. I'm talking about countryside. The place had been decommissioned years before, and most of it was left as is. Low concrete buildings, empty barracks, rusted fences, long stretches of cracked pavement. Eventually, they planned to turn it into a logistics hub, but at the time it was just us, one building lit up in the middle of a dead zone. If you didn't have a car, the company would run a shuttle bus. It came in before each shift and left after like clockwork. Nights were the absolute worst. The last shift would end at 11 p.m., and if you missed that bus, you were stuck out there until morning. Many people relied on this bus to get back to the city after that last shift. Now, the ride in wasn't really that bad. There was still light out, people were talking and joking. It was the ride out that was different. Everybody was tired, quiet, just ready to get home. The road off the base ran straight for a while, then curved past a stretch where the old building still stood. On one side, empty structures, dark windows, doors hanging wide open. On the other, a wide clearing, then a dense wall forest. A lot of people that worked there told stories about that stretch of land, shapes off in the trees, but most of us would ignore it, and I personally didn't believe any of it until one night. It was late summer, still kind of hot. The bus AC wasn't working and the windows were cracked enough to let in some damp jungle air. There were maybe 10 of us on board, the same old faces, a couple of guys from tech, 2 women from billing, and a supervisor who I didn't know very well. The driver was an older guy who'd been running that route forever, literally the only night driver that I'd ever seen. We pulled out at 11, right on the dot. And the first part of that ride was normal, routine. Silence, the growl of the engine. A few people had already had their eyes closed. I was sitting on the left side, halfway down the tube, watching the buildings pass on my left side. When we hit that empty stretch, the bus slowed down a little like usual. I looked across the aisle, out on the right side toward the clearing, before the trees came up. At first I thought maybe I was just tired or a shadow from a tree, until it separated itself from the others and started dashing through the dark. It broke out from the forest with this long leap, then running into a full sprint. It was low but not on all fours. It crossed the clearing in seconds, straight toward the road. There were no animals that I knew of out here with 2 legs that could do that. Somebody near the front made this sound, and I think they were looking out the window too. The driver didn't react though, just kept the bus steady. The thing hit the edge of the road and then matched our speed almost instantly, and most of us started to look now. Then the headlights caught it. I still can't tell you exactly what I saw. It moved insanely fast. The light was catching it in pieces, but it was tall. Its arms were hanging to the ground, almost dragging in the dirt. Its head was angled forward, trying to keep its balance. It turned toward the bus, then it was right there, on top of us, running alongside just outside the window. The first hit rattled the glass, a full body slam. Then again, and again. Heavy blows against the metal between the windows, each one shaking the frame. If it hit the glass, it would have shattered on impact. Everybody was watching now. Somebody in the back started yelling and one of the women ducked down. Everybody else was pressed up against the left side of the bus, staring out the opposite window. I couldn't look away. It kept pace with us without effort. Every few seconds it would lunge sideways, hit the bus again, and that impact had zero effect on the creature itself. The driver finally pressed down on the gas and the engine whined, and the bus picked up speed. We were screaming for him to go, 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 and he kept asking us what was happening, but there was no way to explain it to him. We said that something was attacking the bus and he needed to just go. Either way, the thing stayed with us. For a moment, it actually pulled ahead into the front of the headlights. I got a little bit of a clearer look then. Its face, or whatever passed for one, was flat, pale, but not like skin, more like membrane. No real features, just dark spaces where eyes should have been and a slit where a mouth might have been. It wasn't even looking at the road. It was looking at us. It then dropped back and slammed into the side of the front wheel, hard enough to shutter the whole bus. The driver had seen it clearly and went sheet white in his seat. But still, he had the forethought to hit the gas. We were going way too fast for that road, bouncing over the dips and potholes. The thing kept pace with us for a few more seconds, then it veered off, just turned and sprinted back into the clearing, disappearing into the dark, the same way it came. The banging then stopped, and all was left was the engine and a bus full of people on the verge of tears. What the hell was that? What have we just seen out here? Everybody tried to make sense of it, but nobody had a good theory. The driver didn't look back, but had no interest in investigating anything further. He just kept going until the buildings were gone and the road opened up toward the city. When we finally hit streetlights, all of us breathed a sigh of relief. I got off my stop and went straight home. I didn't sleep because how could I? The next night, the bus still ran at 11, and for the first time ever, there was a different driver now. No one missed it, but no one sat on the right side either. Nobody sat near a window at all. Our managers told us there would be a security patrol now, somebody to keep the road monitored while people commuted. It was better than nothing, I guess. I never saw that thing again, but apparently others have. And they all seem to have a very similar story as mine.